There was a big boxing showdown in Vegas on Saturday night as Canelo Alvarez retained his super middleweight belt in a unanimous decision over Edgar Berlanga Jr. Joining me to recap this fight is a co-host of The Mandatory. His name is Bryan Fonseca, and he joins me now. Bryan, what's going on, man?
Doing well, doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. This was a entertaining fight. I was talking to you a little bit about this. It was an entertaining fight that we saw last night. And Bryan, what were your initial reactions to the fight, and how did it match or differ from your expectations going into this bout?
A lot of people were very, very skeptical that Edgar Berlanga even warranted the opportunity of fighting against Canelo Alvarez. And I come away from last night saying, hey, he actually had Canelo Alvarez's most interesting fight and was Canelo Alvarez's most interesting opponent since maybe the Dimitri Bivol fight that Canelo actually lost more than 2 years ago, because Edgar Berlanga put up more of a fight than Jermell Charlo. I thought he did better than Jaime Munguia, who Canelo Alvarez beat earlier this year. I thought he did better than John Ryder, who Canelo Alvarez beat last year. Like, if you just go through the challengers, I thought Edgar Berlanga, it was a fun fight. It was an entertaining fight. It wasn't a close fight. I thought he only won 2 rounds, so 118, 109 on my scorecard. But I come from this encouraged about Edgar Berlanga, being that he's going to get another big money fight from this performance, just because he was able to hang in there with Canelo Alvarez, who, by the way, hasn't gotten a knockout in about 3 years now, but did so by standing up to Canelo Alvarez in some spurts, had some moments, and kind of showed you enough against somebody who's been pound for pound top 10 for 11 years, pound for pound top 5 right now, and number 1 not too long ago. And doing all those things, yeah, there's a big money fight for him off of this, probably in a year for now, maybe even more, sooner than that.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in the future of both of these fighters, but I agree. I had the same score as you did in terms of watching this fight. And Canelo Alvarez, he dominated the fight to win by unanimous decision. What specific strategies or techniques did you observe that enabled him to control this bout so effectively?
So Edgar Berlanga came out and he was trying to establish a jab. Now, when you and I, Dexter, were watching him come up in New York City, there was none of this. Like, Edgar Berlanga was just going in there and just knocking out whoever he was fighting, because he was able to do that early on in his career, because the guys he was fighting, like, this is what it is when you're coming up in the sport. You're showcasing yourself and trying to beat down the opponents in front of you who are usually not worthy of being in the ring with you. And in this case, and in more recent fights, even against Padres McCrory, we've seen Edgar Berlanga come out as a boxer puncher, trying to be more of a boxer puncher, use his jab early on, be patient, trying to counter in spots. Now, the speed and the reflexes he kind of needs for this strategy, it wasn't quite there against Canelo Alvarez. And Canelo Alvarez was able to just walk him down the entire time. Canelo Alvarez didn't respect Edgar Berlanga's jab, didn't respect really his power early on. He had to get that respect, and later on you started to see it as Edgar Berlanga had a few moments, particularly in the middle rounds, because I thought he won rounds 6 and 7, and Canelo Alvarez was able to, adjust and still hurt Edgar Berlanga to the body and hit it with big shots. But it was more so that, like, Edgar Berlanga's been trying to be more of a boxer puncher, and Canelo Alvarez was able to just walk him down, apply the pressure. And as a smaller fighter, he's able to outbox these taller fighters because he figures out ways to get inside, hit you to the body. And he was doing that all night long against Edgar Berlanga.
Yeah, you saw that, and you saw him get Berlanga in the corner multiple times throughout the night and just dominate once he got him in there. Now, you talked about Edgar Berlanga, who came to his fight. There were people who had a little bit of trepidation about him, and like you said, if he deserved a matchup here with Canelo Alvarez, but there was hype around him, especially about his power. Where do you think he fell short in this fight, and what do you think he could have done differently to have more of a chance against Alvarez?
I don't think he was active enough with his hands. Now, I felt like he needed to take more chances in doing the strategy. Like, the strategy that he tried to deploy was actually a smart one. He just, couldn't execute it because Canelo Alvarez is that good. He's seen it all. 65 pro fights, 34 years old, pro for 19 years, and still probably at the tail end of his prime, but still very much one of the best 5 or so fighters in boxing. Whereas Edgar Berlanga, while he's still seen as an up-and-comer, we can upgrade him now to contender. And I think what he was trying to do, as I said, like, Canelo Alvarez was just able to easily penetrate it. But I think with Edgar Berlanga, you have to be encouraged even despite that. Like, in terms of what went wrong for him, I would actually say like he comes out a winner from this because his next fight is going to be meaningful. He's going to get in there maybe with somebody he could beat. There was somebody on the undercard, Trevor McCumbee, who lost to Caleb Plant, who I think that Edgar Berlanga would, that's a fight that would make a lot of sense in a lot of different ways because both of those guys are coming off losses and the winner could get upgraded to a potential title match. Edgar Berlanga has had back and forths with other guys in this weight class, and there's been potential talks about could he fight a Jaime Munguia in the future? Could he fight, a Diego Pacheco in the future? Or one that I think is more realistic, Caleb Plant, who fought on this card and won an interim title. Like, I think Edgar Berlanga still comes away a winner from all this. So things went wrong for him in the ring, but it was against Canelo Alvarez, and it's a big-time learning experience that I think could benefit him very, very soon, and just for the rest of his career if he's smart about how he utilizes the lessons that he learned in this fight.
Yeah, definitely could benefit him, and we'll see how that goes moving ahead. Now, looking ahead, you kind of talked about this with Edgar Berlanga, but who do you see as the next potential opponents for both Canelo Alvarez and Edgar Berlanga? You can focus more on Canelo because you gave us some of the opponents for Edgar, but who do you think Canelo could fight next?
Yeah, for Canelo, David Benavidez is the one. Like, that's the one guy that we want to see Canelo Alvarez fight. I was saying before last year, like, it'd be great if he fought, the winner of Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga instead and just fought, David Benavidez maybe in the meantime, but he instead fought Jaime Munguia and then Edgar Berlanga. And there's no true sign of him fighting David Benavidez, if we're being, honest. There's rumors about Canelo Alvarez potentially fighting in December. Someone threw out Japan. I don't know if any of that's real. It's boxing. There's a lot of BS in this sport when it comes to news that gets flooded out there, if you want to even call it that. And most likely we're not going to see Canelo Alvarez until May because Cinco de Mayo weekend. He tends to fight May, September now, so that's what it is. If he does get another fight in December, I don't expect it to be an opponent that is all worthwhile. Maybe Canelo Alvarez tries to get his first knockout against a soft opponent. He's done this in the past with guys like Rocky Fielding before, for example. So the main guy is David Benavidez, and whether or not that's going to happen, I'm not sure. And then the other one is probably Dimitri Bivol, who's going to fight in a massive, massive light heavyweight unification bout next month to determine undisputed in the weight class of 175 pounds. Bivol, of course, beat Canelo Alvarez a couple years ago, and Canelo Alvarez has been wanting to get that one back. It's not a rematch that I'd be too interested in, but, I'm not going to complain if it does happen. Like, I would get it from all sides from a business perspective, and the business of that fight is going to be easy to see if that works out because Dimitri Bivol is working with the Saudis, and Canelo wants nothing to do with them.
Yeah, and we will see if that happens. The Benavidez fight feels like the one that should happen, but like you said, boxing sometimes is boxing. Now, after this fight, Canelo reiterated his claim to being the best boxer in the world based on his performance here. How strong is his case, and where does he stand in the all-time greats conversation in your eyes?
Yeah, he's definitely an all-time great. He's the first ballot future Hall of Famer. In terms of even Mexican boxers, like, there are probably some people who would argue he's number one. I would say that Julio Cesar Chavez, obviously, and then you have Salvador Sanchez. Like, those are probably your top three. There are a lot of others, but like, if we're just keeping it to that, Canelo Alvarez has firmly entrenched himself in that. And as a pound for pound guy, as we mentioned, top five right now, and all-time great because how many guys have been a pound for pound guy in a sport 11 years in a row? He's literally been on every pound for pound end of year ranking since 2013. He's going to be there again at the end of this year. Like, he's really that dude. And, you could say, hey, he's gotten some favorable decisions, and he has. The first Gennady Golovkin decision, a lot of people thought that was a draw or that Golovkin straight up won the fight. I'm one of those people. I thought that Erislandy Lara probably beat him 10 or so years ago. I thought the scorecards were too wide against Miguel Cotto, though I did think that Canelo Alvarez got the better of him, but also there was a big weight discrepancy. But we don't have to get into that necessarily. But Canelo Alvarez has really demonstrated, especially in the years since, like, he's beaten top flight guys convincingly, just one after another after another. And the reason he's gotten criticism in recent years is because now they want to see him fight the next set of guys who are in their prime, who are quote unquote worthy of an opportunity of fighting him. David Benavidez is the top of the list, and then he also lost to Dimitri Bivol. But for that one, it's like Canelo Alvarez is not really a true light heavyweight, so you kind of like give him a mulligan on that. But he's been in the ring with a lot of the top guys from his era. He's beaten a bunch of them. He's an all-time great. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's one of the best to do it, at least of my generation of watching the sport.
No doubt about that. And it was a great fight on Saturday night between Canelo Alvarez and Edgar Berlanga Jr. Fantastic one. That is Bryan Fonseca, co-host of the Mandatory Great Boxing Show. Check that one out. Bryan, appreciate the recap and the breakdown. We'll talk more boxing soon. Thank you, sir.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.